Chapter 586. Gu Xingyin boarded the train to the city under the gaze of Steve and Joanna. In fact, she didn't know why she had to go to the city, but the system reminded her to do so. She asked why, and the system replied, "You have to go anyway." The system didn't say anything else. Gu Xingyin attracted a lot of attention. Some people were even secretly discussing whether this girl was a star somewhere. But if such a beautiful star debuted, it was impossible that no one would know about her. Some people even secretly took photos of Gu Xingyin sitting quietly beside the bed on the train. The sun shone through the glass window mischievously on her face. Under the sun, her face looked like a white jade carving. Any random photo was more shocking than those carefully edited photos of stars. A post went viral on the internet. Treat it as an existence similar to Weibo. It was a very simple post. Today on the train, I felt like I met an angel. Below was a photo. It was the photo of Gu Xingyin with her eyes half closed and the sun shining on her body. It was only a side view, but it was enough to show her breathtaking beauty. In just over an hour, the post was reposted countless times. Many people expressed their disbelief. This photo had definitely been polished and polished. If you have the ability, post the original photo. The person who posted the post was unhappy. "I posted the original photo, but you don't believe me." She walked up to Gu Xingyin and politely asked her if she could take a few photos of her and post them on the internet. After all, it was okay that she had just posted a side view. If she wanted to post a picture of her face, she had to get Gu Xingyin's permission. Gu Xingyin raised her head and looked at her curiously. When she knew the purpose of her visit, she showed a slightly shy smile and nodded gently. The woman couldn't help but cover her chest when she saw the smile. God, why did a girl of the same gender make her heart beat faster, and she couldn't breathe? The last time she felt like this was when she saw her idol for many years. No, the feeling wasn't even this strong back then. She returned to her seat absent-mindedly. She thought in despair, could it be that she was actually gay? It was not only this woman who was shocked by Gu Xingyin's smile. When Gu Xingyin revealed that smile, the entire carriage became quiet weirdly. Then, those who were waiting for a follow-up discovered that the person who had sent the original message had sent several more messages. "You're saying that this is a photo that has been edited? Now I'll show you the one I just took. Oh, my phone is the super popular model." Below were pictures. Pictures, pictures. It was obvious that the photos were taken with a low-resolution phone. They could still see the scenery outside the car window. One of the photos even showed the foot of the passenger behind Gu Xingyin. The only thing that didn't change was Gu Xingyin's face, which was so beautiful that it didn't belong to this world. The onlookers went crazy, and this news was pushed to the front page in a short time. Some people even asked her which train she was on and asked her to go and watch. Gu Xingyin was so angry that he was caught off guard. In a distant city, in a 100-story building, a handsome man in a black suit was reading the news. "No matter what price it takes, we must sign her to our company." Chapter 587. At the last stop, Gu Xingyin got off the train. This was a completely unfamiliar place to her. Many people were already looking at her. Some of them had already recognized her as the girl in the handwritten letter, and were whispering excitedly, "Hello, beautiful lady." A middle-aged man in a black suit walked quickly to her side. "I'm Thomas from Kina Pictures." He handed a business card to Gu Xingyin. "Are you interested in becoming an artist under our company?" Gu Xingyin was investigating Kina Pictures. The results came out quickly. It was one of the largest film and television companies in the world, and had an important position in the film industry. Thomas looked at the girl who remained silent, and thought that she was wary of him. He took out his phone and tapped on it a few times. Then he showed Gu Xingyin a page. "The person on this page is me. You don't have to worry that I'm a bad person." Then he said considerately, "Or if you feel hesitant, you can ask your guardian for help. This girl looks so young. She shouldn't be 18 years old yet." Thomas thought. When he said this, he was full of confidence. Ordinary people couldn't refuse an invitation from Kina Pictures. "No need." Gu Xingyin finally said, "I don't have a guardian. I can make my own decisions." Her voice was clear and gentle. When she spoke, It was like singing a hymn. Thomas's mind went blank for a moment. In his mind, he started to think about the development path for this girl. That's great, Thomas said. What do you mean? Gu Xingyin tilted her head and winked mischievously. I want to know what kind of conditions you will give me. Thomas was shocked by this cute tilting head and covered his heart. Oh my God! After he said that, he didn't feel awkward at all. If you don't mind, we can talk about it at our headquarters. Gu Xingyin got into Thomas's car. As soon as the car left, someone rushed over. How did Kenna's men move so quickly? Damn it. A sexy woman with an enchanting figure and red lips had a very bad expression on her face. She was from Byte Film. When she saw this girl's news on the internet, she saw countless business opportunities. She knew that this would be a huge money tree. But with that face, even if she didn't have any talent or acting skills, she could still move freely in this industry. It was a pity that she was one step behind them. The woman with red lips cursed, got in the car and left. Gu Xingyin accepted the invitation of this man called Thomas because when she was on the train, she suddenly felt a very subtle energy being transmitted into her body. The energy came from the woman who had uploaded her picture to the internet, the other passengers in the car, and the people who liked her on the internet. The amount of energy each person could give her was very small, but Gu Xingyin could clearly feel that the small, weak energy was slowly healing the serious injuries in her body. These were brought to her by those who liked her. But for her injuries, these energy were just a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. But what if the number of people became very large? But Gu Xingyin, who had been a movie queen in the entertainment industry, knew that a popular star would have a very scary fan club. Chapter 588. The amount of energy that each person could give her might not be much. 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, it might not be much either. But what if there were 10,000 people? What if there were 100,000 people? What if there were 1 million, 10 million, or even 100 million people? Gu Xingyin's mission was to make sure that Angela had a good life. Then, healing the injuries on this body and recovering her strength was also one of the missions. Gu Xingyin told the system about her conjecture. The system's reply confirmed her conjecture. Originally, the power of faith was the best energy for an angel. But now that the world had lost its gods and people no longer had faith, they could only use another method. Everyone knew that humans loved their idols crazily. This kind of love, in essence, was somewhat similar to the power of faith. It was just that this kind of love could not be compared to the purity of the power of faith. The effect of this kind of love was also very different from the power of faith. But this was already very good. At least Gu Xingyin saw a hope of recovering from her injuries. Say, if the identity of an angel was announced, the humans would gather their faith again? How was that possible? Gu Xingyin did not need to think to know that if she really did that, what awaited her would not be the power of faith, but some government or non-government organization that would detain and research her. Just like Angela in the original storyline. Along the way, Gu Xingyin was communicating with the system, so she did not say anything. Thomas, who was always very talkative, did not know why he was sitting beside her. At this time, it should be the best time to get closer to her. But when he saw this girl sitting there quietly without doing anything, he had an inexplicable feeling that he did not dare to disturb her. It was as if he would be committing an unforgivable crime if he disturbed her. Gu Xingyin knew why. Angela was a six-winged angel, even if she did not show her wings and retracted her holy light. But there was no way to completely retract the holy aura that belonged to a high-grade angel. Even if only a little was leaked, it was enough to make any mortal not dare to blaspheme. Of course, she couldn't tell Thomas about this, but Thomas had already found the reason by himself. Some of the top celebrities had their own unique aura. Sometimes, when you looked at a group photo, you would know that even though it was a group photo of two people, sometimes you would completely ignore the other person. This was the power of the aura. However, the aura of those celebrities was mostly formed through constant experience or after they had been famous for a long time. Could it be that this girl was born with such an aura? Thomas felt that he had really picked up a treasure. "We are here, Miss Angela." Thomas got out of the car first and opened the door for Gu Xingyin. After half an hour, Thomas learned Gu Xingyin's name. Kenna Pictures was located in the busiest commercial center of York City. Companies that could own an independent office building here were all existences with great influence in the world. Gu Xingyin raised his head to take a look before following Thomas into the company. Along the way, many fashionably dressed people greeted Thomas with smiles on their faces. If an ordinary person was here, he or she would have screamed out loud. This was because these people were all people who could be seen on the big screen often. Chapter 589. Thomas was not as enthusiastic as when he was with Gu Xingyin. He was indifferent to most people. He would only smile when he was with a few people. These people were all big shots in the film industry, or rising stars. They looked curiously at Gu Xingyin, who was brought in by Thomas. At first glance, they felt a great sense of danger, especially the female stars. This girl was too beautiful. She was a woman who could make any woman feel threatened. Especially in the film industry, where the first thing to look at was the face. No wonder Thomas brought her here personally. No matter what those stars thought, they still gave Gu Xingyin a friendly smile on the surface. With her looks and Thomas's attitude, if this girl didn't court death by herself or really couldn't be helped, her future development wouldn't be too bad. It was good to form a good relationship with her in advance. Thomas brought Gu Xingyin to the 88th floor. This floor was the office of the company's senior management. There were already people waiting for them there. Thomas glanced around. Other than the company's director, even the general manager, who rarely appeared, was here. Other than that, there were also a few top managers. They were sitting here to see how beautiful this girl, who was known as an angel, was. The moment Gu Xingyin entered the office, they all held their breaths. After that, Kate, the top manager of Kenna Pictures, recalled, "When I saw Angela for the first time, I felt that the narrow office was suddenly lit up." She had said more than once that her biggest regret in life was not being able to be Angela's manager. An artist like her could bring a manager to the top of the world. Originally, the company had received orders from the big boss to sign this girl at all costs. Initially, these people still had some complaints in their hearts. That boss didn't know much about the entertainment industry, so he should at least let them take a look first, right? However, the moment they saw this girl named Angela, they understood what their boss was thinking. For such a girl, if Kenna's action was a little slower, there would be other companies that couldn't wait to throw out all kinds of generous conditions to beg her to sign a contract. Everything went smoothly. Even Gu Xingyin didn't expect that the company would be willing to give her such good conditions. If it wasn't for the system's confirmation that these documents and contracts were all real and had legal effect, anyone else would have suspected that this was a trap that Kenna had dug for them. Then she chose her manager. Usually, the company would directly assign managers to artists. The big managers could even choose their own artists. When it came to Gu Xingyin, all of Kenna's top managers were there for her to choose from. This time, Thomas enjoyed the advantage of being close to her. Gu Xingyin looked at all the managers and chose him, who she was most familiar with, without hesitation. The others gritted their teeth in anger. They secretly hated themselves for not being willing to lower themselves to pick up an unknown girl after the company had issued that order. Now that they thought about it, they had missed a big money tree. Of course, they just felt a little regretful. Not long after, they beat their chests and stamped their feet. Chapter 590. Thomas was an all-round agent. That night, he brought Gu Xingyin to an exquisitely decorated high-class apartment. "This is the apartment the company gave you. This is your personal assistant Wella." Wella was a girl with some freckles on her face. She was around 20 years old and had a very bright smile. "Rest well today. Tomorrow I will come here to discuss with you your future position and your future schedule." Since it was already night time, Thomas didn't want to stay any longer. He left after saying this. "Wow. Miss Angela, this is the company's arrangement for an A-list artist." Wella looked at Gu Xingyin excitedly. If you looked closely, you could see a trace of envy in her eyes. This Miss Angela didn't even look 20 years old. She had such a high starting point. The artists in the company, which one of them didn't debut many years ago and fight to get to where they were now? Gu Xingyin looked at her and smiled without saying anything. This Wella, to be sent by Kenna to be her personal assistant. She couldn't be as simple as she looked. You can call me Angela in the future. I hope we can work together happily. Gu Xingyin reached out her hand. Wella was dazed by this smile for a moment. She only reacted after Gu Xingyin called her, and held Gu Xingyin's hand with a red face. God, even a girl like her couldn't control herself when facing Miss Angela's smile. She could imagine how passionate those male fans would be in the future. Wella thought in her heart. The next morning at 8, Thomas knocked on the apartment door on time. He originally thought that Gu Xingyin would still be resting. At this age, which young person didn't like to sleep in? But when he entered the door, he saw Gu Xingyin sitting on the sofa with a book in her hand. She smiled and said good morning to him. This girl, any action was enough to make her look like a painting. Thomas sighed in his heart and looked forward to the future. He and Gu Xingyin went to the study and began to talk about his ideas with her. The company wants you to take the high-end route. That's what I think too. This was decided by Angela's appearance and temperament. With her current appearance, even if she was wearing coarse clothes, no one would think that she was just an extra. What kind of family and parents could raise a girl like Angela? Of course, Kenna had investigated the identities of his artists. However, what puzzled them was that Angela was saved by a famous outdoor adventurer in a snowy mountain, and lived in that small city for a period of time. He couldn't find any more information about Angela. It was as if she had appeared in the mountain out of thin air. Angela herself had no memories of her past. Kenna Company couldn't find anything, so they simply arranged a flawless false identity for Gu Xingyin, so that she wouldn't be criticized because of her identity after she became famous. The two of them chatted until noon. Thomas was very satisfied with Gu Xingyin. Although this girl had some advantages that ordinary people couldn't compare to, she wasn't arrogant at all. Gu Xingyin was also very satisfied with Thomas. She used to be Ruan Kai, so she naturally knew how important an excellent manager was to an artist. Wella knocked on the door outside the room, and the two of them reacted. Wella's skills are famous, Thomas said with a smile. Chapter 591. At night, Gu Xingyin had already fallen into a deep sleep. Wella walked out of her room and gently closed the door. How is she? A cold and emotionless male voice asked. Wella didn't know why her boss was so concerned about Angela. She honestly replied, she's very beautiful and has a good temper, but what? Wella's voice was a little strange. She seems to be unfamiliar with some common sense things. This was something that had always puzzled her. But thinking about how she said that she had lost her memory, this was also reasonable. Take good care of her. That male voice only said this one sentence. After Wella left, in the darkness, there was a low sigh with longing. Gu Xingyin didn't know this. The system also didn't tell her this. Kenna Pictures launched an earth-shattering publicity campaign. Whether it was the official website, major platforms, or even fashion magazines, there were advertisements for them. The content was all about the most anticipated new artist of the year. Even their competitors were speechless. This time, Kenna really put in a lot of effort for this newcomer. Even Kenna's latest film hadn't been able to enjoy such a bombardment of publicity. But the effect was equally good. Everyone knew that Kenna had recently signed a new artist, and was training her in the direction of an A-list big star. Kenna's advertisements were also not modest at all. Something like a gift from God, the pearl of the snow mountain. Gu Xingyin was a little embarrassed. Kenna's move was really enough to whet the appetite of others. Almost everyone was looking forward to what kind of female artist they were boasting about. What kind of person was she? But after whetting the appetite of others, they were gone. There were no photos of the newcomer, no announcements of the newcomer, not even a photo of the newcomer. Shouldn't they take advantage of the current popularity to push out the newcomer? Now, if they pushed out the newcomer, they could still take advantage of the popularity and become popular. If they kept whetting the appetite of the masses, when the newcomer appeared, it wouldn't be able to satisfy people's expectations. Just the spittle alone could probably drown a person. Many people said that there were only two possibilities for Kenna to do this. 1. The higher-ups made a mistake in their decision. 2. They had great confidence in their new artist. With Kenna's status, the possibility of the former was very small. Then it was very likely to be the latter. It had to be said that Kenna's publicity was on point this time. Regardless of whether it was in their handwriting, major platforms, or newspapers and magazines, they were all discussing Kenna, a newcomer who was said to have a great background. Wasn't this nonsense? Without a powerful background, would Kenna really be willing to spend so much resources on a newbie? The second wave of popularity was completely spontaneous. Therefore, Kenna, a mysterious newcomer who had never appeared in public, was no less popular than any A-list celebrity in terms of attention. What do you think is the background of this newcomer? The company is promoting her like this? A sexy female celebrity was chatting with another person beside her. If there were any fans here, they would recognize that this was Cynthia Gillard, who had become popular with a movie some time ago. She was a stunner known for her sex appeal. When she said this, her eyes were full of jealousy that couldn't be hidden. Chapter 592. The actress opposite her was even more famous than her. She was Modis Dawson, the top actress of Kenner who had won an Oscar. Modis Dawson did not say much after hearing Gerard's words. She had some guesses about the newcomer's identity. She was probably the girl that Thomas had brought over personally that day. When she thought of that girl's face, she could not help but be distracted for a moment. It was simply too shocking. However, at her position, no matter how outstanding the younger generation in the company was, they could not shake her position. She pretended not to hear Modis's subtle provocation. This idiot. The company was obviously trying to promote the newcomer. It was okay to ask around at this time, but if she wanted to trip her up, she was really stupid. That's right. Angela was a newcomer. Even within the company, other than a few higher-ups who knew about her, her identity was also a mystery. Gu Xingyin was preparing for this body's first movie. The annual blockbuster that Kenner was investing in was aiming for an Oscar. This movie was Kenner's most expensive movie of the day. The cast was even more luxurious. Most of them were signed artists under Kenner. There were also a few supporting actors who were hired from other places. Modis Dawson was the female lead of this movie. The male lead was also Augustus Monroe, who had won an Oscar before. He was one of the dream lovers of all women in the world. The director, Kim Peter, was in a bad mood. He had spent a lot of effort on this movie. He was also the one who had selected the actors. However, just as he was about to settle on the role, the biggest investor of the movie, Kenner Fortress, came in. It would have been fine if it was just a casual role. However, they wanted a very important supporting role in the entire movie. This was an epic fantasy movie based on the novel of the same name. The role that Kenner wanted was the first villain in the movie, a stunning beauty. His original choice was the most beautiful person in romance, who had been voted by the audience and media as the most beautiful person. This was because the character herself was the most beautiful person. A smile from the princess in the movie could make 100 flowers bloom. How could such a character be so easily replaced by someone else? He even quarreled with the investor because of this. However, the investor, who was usually very easy to talk to, was surprisingly stubborn this time. He repeatedly emphasized that the candidate they sent this time was definitely in line with the character of the princess. Well, in the end Peter gave in and agreed to let them bring someone over for him to look at. But that was all. If he didn't think it was suitable, he would never let people appear in his movies. The main cast of the movie had already received the news. Some of the smarter ones had already roughly guessed the identity of this heaven-sent actor. The only person who could force Peter to give in, and was also a newcomer, was probably Kenna, the newcomer who had been hidden so well. Quite a few people were waiting there to watch. What exactly did the other party look like, to actually have such great ability? The door opened, and everyone's gaze turned towards it. The one who came out was Thomas's signature smiling face. Everyone is welcoming me with such a big formation? Everyone rolled their eyes in their hearts. Old man, go away. We want to see the person behind you. Then, the person they were looking for finally appeared behind Thomas. Everyone turned their attention to her once again. However, the person who came in was wearing a thick hoodie. The wide hood covered his face and a pair of huge sunglasses. They couldn't see anything at all. Chapter 593. At most, he could tell that the other party was a tall and slender woman. Everyone watched as Thomas led his men into the director's lounge. Ken Peter was sitting inside with a cold face. He was a stubborn old man. Even though he had agreed to Kenna's request, he was still in a bad mood. "Hey, old man, look, I've brought her here." Thomas seemed to be very familiar with him. Peter's expression softened a little. "I'll say this first. If she doesn't fit the image of the character, even if you brought her here, I won't use her." Thomas was full of confidence. "Don't worry, I bet you'll be satisfied with her." "Angela." Gu Xingyin took off the sunglasses on the bridge of her nose and pulled down the hood. Her long, smooth blonde hair slid down her shoulders and fell to her waist. Peter poured himself a glass of water casually and glanced at Gu Xingyin's direction. It was this one glance that caused him to be stunned. The girl who stood there quietly had long blonde hair that reached her waist. She was like the most beautiful rice ear in the harvest season. Her blue eyes reflected the color of the entire sky. She was surprised to see the outsiders, but she immediately showed them a friendly smile. Joshua felt that at that moment, he heard the sound of flowers blooming in his heart. This was the description of the male protagonist, Joshua, when he first met Princess Utana in the original novel. Ken Peter felt that the beautiful princess must have walked out of the script and appeared in front of him. "Ken, my old man, your shoes are in trouble." Thomas's gloating voice woke him up. The water in the quilt overflowed and flowed onto his shoes. But Ken Peter didn't care about this. He put the quilt on the table and wiped his hands with a tissue. He walked to Gu Xingyin excitedly. "What's your name?" he asked. "Angela." "Angela, good name." He reached out his right hand to Gu Xingyin. "I wish us a happy cooperation." Was this considered overboard? Gu Xingyin blinked and reached out to shake hands with Ken Peter. Thomas, who was standing by the side, said unhappily, "Ken, earlier, you said that you wanted to see the person first. If you weren't satisfied, you wouldn't agree. Now, what do you think about our Angela compared to the actress you have your eyes on?" Peter glared at him and said, "If you had sent me Angela's photo earlier, I wouldn't have had to go through so much trouble." He was very excited now. Originally, he had high expectations for this movie, but the actress playing Princess Utana had not been chosen yet. God's love had allowed him to find such a person who fit the original novel perfectly. One had to know that in the original novel, the most controversial character among the fans was the villain princess who was both good and evil. In terms of popularity, Princess Utana was not any less popular than the male and female leads. A smile appeared on Thomas's face. He knew that as long as Angela was here, that perfectionist Ken would not have any objections. No one else could fit Princess Utana's image as well as Angela. Chapter 594. Even if Gu Xingyin's acting didn't meet expectations, Peter would at most cut her scenes a little. The actors waiting outside were all waiting for the result. Thomas walked out first. Seeing the smile on his face, many people had already guessed the answer. It seemed that director Peter had agreed. This made them even more curious. After all, director Peter had written all his dissatisfaction on his face. What kind of charm did this newcomer have to make this stubborn old man compromise? Soon they knew why. Gu Xingyin walked out with Peter. But at that moment, everyone automatically ignored Peter's existence. In everyone's eyes, there was only Gu Xingyin, who seemed to be glowing all over. Augustus Monroe, who played the male lead, muttered, "I finally know why Joshua couldn't be ruthless when he found out that Utana was lying to him." Which man could be ruthless to such a woman? The actresses had different reactions. Some were appreciative, some were jealous, and some maintained a smile. A few of them didn't look good. Would anyone really notice them if they acted in the same movie with such a person? Peter clapped his hands and said to everyone, "Let's welcome the last actor of the Holy Ring." Regardless of what they thought, the actors all smiled to show their welcome. Augustus Monroe directly said to Gu Xingyin, "If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me." Gu Xingyin smiled at him. "Thank you, Mr. Monroe." Augustus covered his chest exaggeratedly. God, I'm sure I was shot by the Cupid's arrow. I've been captured by your smile, Miss Angela. His performance made many people laugh. Modi's Dawson also held Gu Xingyin's hand intimately. You and I are both taught by Thomas. If you have any questions, you can ask me too. Most of the actors and actresses present were under Kenna, so of course, they wouldn't try to undermine Gu Xingyin. In fact, they had to support her from behind. At this time, Ken Peter said, everyone knows that the list of actors for The Holy Ring has been announced a long time ago. Only Utana's name has remained a mystery. I've decided to keep her a secret until the filming starts. This meant that they should keep their mouths shut when they returned. When he saw Gu Xingyin, Ken Peter had this idea in his mind. He wanted Utana to be one of the most mysterious people in this movie's publicity period. If it wasn't for Gu Xingyin, he might not have done this, but Angela's appearance gave him hope. Heidi was an ordinary high school student. She was a fan of The Holy Ring. Not only her, but her father and brother were also fans of the book. Ever since the news of the filming of The Holy Ring was released, she had been paying close attention to the news. Her favorite character was not the male lead, Joshua, or the female lead, Helen. It was the first villain, Princess Utana, who lived in the castle in the sky. The person who would play the princess was also one of the things she paid attention to the most. In Heidi's mind, the ideal actress for Utana was the first beauty of romance, Sophia. Only the first beauty could portray the charm of Princess Utana, right? Heidi thought, although she felt that Sophia was lacking something. Many people had the same idea as Heidi. Chapter 595. After dinner today, she habitually opened the official website of The Holy Ring. She found that it was flooded with comments. It turned out that the list of actors had been announced. Heidi's eyes lit up, and she quickly scrolled down the list. Joshua, Augustus Monroe. Helen, Modi's Dawson. Utana? What? Heidi thought that she had seen wrongly and looked again. That's right, there was a long line of question marks behind the name of Utana. What did this mean? Heidi scrolled down the comments and sure enough, half of the fans were questioning what the director was doing. Heidi couldn't help but leave a comment. She wanted to know what this meant. However, there was no response from the official website. Heidi logged in and found that it was also flooded with comments. Many fans of The Holy Ring were discussing who would play Utana. The number of fans discussing Utana's role even exceeded the two main leads. At 8 o'clock in the evening, the official website of The Holy Ring finally responded. The most fitting character of Utana, below the bold title, was the words of the director, Ken Peter. Good news for the fans of The Holy Ring. We have found the actor who best fits Utana's image. See you on December 1st next year. Below was some information about The Holy Ring, including the costume guide, budget, and so on. However, what the fans were most concerned about was who would play Utana. No. Well, if you don't tell us who it is, a photo will do, right? Also no. They didn't reveal anything and just used the banner of the most fitting character of Utana. All the fans' curiosity was piqued. The most fitting character of Utana? One had to know that in the original work, Utana was called a gift from God to the human world. Her beauty was completely beyond human imagination, and she lived in the castle in the sky all year round. She didn't know what was good and evil, and only relied on her own preferences. She had a kind of arrogant and cruel naivety to everyone. Could the crew really find such an actress? Was it the appearance or the temperament that matched the original work? Or was this a publicity stunt created by the production crew in order to attract more attention? Some anti-fans were already cursing on the official website. There were also some fans of Sophia. They had always thought that the role of Utana would go to Sophia. Only Sophia's beauty could make up for Utana, but the production team did not choose her. Another group of fans began to leave comments under the other actors and actresses, asking about the situation of the actor who played Utana. Of course, the actors who had been warned by Peter would not reveal any information about Gu Xingyin. Only Modi's posted, "The news about Utana is a secret. I can only say that she won't disappoint everyone. I'm a fan of The Holy Ring, and I can tell everyone that director Peter was right. She was born to play the role of Utana." Augustus also replied to the message. He did not write as much as Modi's, only a short sentence. I saw Princess Utana standing in front of me. The two main actors of The Holy Ring had expressed their approval of the actress who played Utana. This made the fans even more curious. Just what kind of beauty did she have to be to gain everyone's approval? Do you dare to say it all at once? Chapter 596. However, no matter how much the fans roared in their hearts, the entire crew of The Holy Ring did not reveal anything. On the contrary, the fans were intrigued. They went to the official website every day, looking forward to the day when the crew would be merciful and release the stills. In the end, there really was. Augustus's Joshua was full of heroic spirit and extraordinarily handsome. Modi's Helen was beautiful, affectionate, and extremely intelligent. Finally, it was Utana's turn. Utana only had a back view. The back view in a white dress was surrounded by a sea of flowers. Under the kiss of the sun, it seemed to glow. People could not help but want her to look back. Why don't you turn around and look? The fans expressed that their hearts were tired. A fan left a comment below. Haha, I have already seen through the sinister intentions of the crew. I have no hope. I am only waiting for the premiere next year. I admit that you've successfully piqued my curiosity. If Utana can't satisfy me, then just you wait. I will use all the vulgar words I have learned in my life to greet you all. His comment caused many people to feel the same way. Peter smiled as he looked at the various data that his assistant sent to him. Very good, the publicity of The Holy Ring was better than he had imagined. Gu Xingyin began to follow the production crew around the world for filming. What surprised Peter was that at first, he was worried that Angela was a newcomer and might not be good at acting. He had already prepared for her to only be responsible for her beauty. After all, even if she was a vase, as long as she had a face like Angela, there would be a lot of people willing to pay for her beauty. However, some people might be born to eat this bowl of rice. Not only did she have an unattainable beauty, but she also had an aura that ordinary people could not compare to. At the beginning of filming, Angela obviously made all kinds of mistakes. She was clearly at the level of a layman. However, what shocked the director and the other actors the most was that no matter what kind of mistake she made, as long as you corrected her once, she would never make the same mistake a second time. Even Modi's had to sigh when he talked about her. I may be witnessing the rise of a legend. As for Peter, Peter was overjoyed. He originally had high expectations for The Holy Ring, but after seeing Gu Xingyin's performance, he felt that he could set his goal even higher. It was perfect. In the later stages of the movie, no one could see any trace of a newcomer in this girl. Augustus was the one who acted with Gu Xingyin the most. He was even brought into the scene by Gu Xingyin, who was in the zone. He felt that he was Joshua, and the one he loved deeply was the beautiful princess. Augustus looked at Gu Xingyin with more and more infatuation. The crew had already sensed his thoughts, but looking at the other person, it was clear that he had no romantic feelings for Augustus. The officials of The Holy Ring did a good job. Every once in a while, they would release some news so that the fans would continue to pay attention to it and not forget about it. However, Princess Utana, who was the most anticipated, left people with only a back view that caused endless fanciful thoughts. No one, including Gu Xingyin, knew that there was someone who knew her whereabouts and every little bit of her daily life. Chapter 597. While many people were paying attention to it, the trailer of The Holy Ring was released. The special effects of the movie did not disappoint the audience. This time Peter had a huge investment from Kenna. Whether it was the special effects, the soundtrack, or the post-production, they were all selected by the world's top team. The effect of the movie could be seen from the audience's reaction. Many fans of The Holy Ring had the same reaction after watching the trailer. Why did the movie have to wait until December to be released? Of course, as everyone expected, the crew once again whetted the audience's appetite. The audience was already familiar with Joshua's and Modi's appearances, but they were still pleasantly surprised by the dynamic trailer. Then for the first time, the crew was generous with the role of Utana. The trailer revealed half of Utana's face. The last scene of the trailer was when Joshua mistakenly entered the Sky Castle and saw Utana for the first time. The handsome warrior looked at the girl in front of him with amazement and infatuation. The camera zoomed in and moved up from the other party's skirt. The audience also held their breaths. The gorgeous skirt, the beautiful collarbone, and then the audience saw the delicate outline of the chin and the slightly upturned corners of the lips. When the whole person was about to come out, the scene abruptly stopped. It was said that the day the trailer of The Holy Ring was released, the sales of keyboards in the entire United States suddenly soared. Many emotional fans said, "Peter, you'd better not let me see you before the release of The Holy Ring. Otherwise, you'd better be careful of your personal safety." More people turned their attention to the movie. Some professionals pointed out that the filming of The Holy Ring this time, based on the special effects and visuals shown in the trailer, could very well become an epic fantasy masterpiece. Fans of the original novel of The Holy Ring expressed that they had been afraid that filming the movie would ruin the novel. However, after watching the trailer, they were filled with anticipation for the movie. "I'm a fan of The Holy Ring. Of course, I'm a fan of the novel. Ever since I heard that The Holy Ring was going to be made into a movie, I rejected it because I didn't believe that anyone could film the complete The Holy Ring. However, after I saw the trailer, my thoughts changed. I've watched this trailer more than 10 times, and now I have two thoughts. First, why is there still 3 months until the premiere? Secondly, do you dare to release a picture of my goddess Utana?" While The Holy Ring caused a wave of excitement outside, the filming of the movie was coming to an end. Yeah, the crisp sound of glasses clinking could be heard. The movie was finally completed. As usual, Peter spent a lot of money and invited the actors to the most luxurious 5-star hotel nearby for a meal. Augustus also invited everyone to his house for a party in the evening. The best actor might have his own properties all over the world because he often had to travel all over the world. Of course, no one would refuse. The movie is selling like hotcakes. Peter the old man was drunk. He was still mumbling as he hugged the wine bottle. The young actors and actresses were showing off their figures in the swimming pool. Gu Xingyin didn't particularly like this kind of noisy gathering. She took a glass of wine and leaned on the side to watch them play. "Angela." Augustus's voice came from behind her. Hearing his voice, Gu Xingyin felt a headache coming on. Chapter 598. Most of the people in the crew had already seen through Augustus's feelings for her. Augustus had restrained himself a little at first, but as they approached the end of the shoot, he became more and more unrestrained. Peter would not interfere in the private affairs of actors. Moreover, if Joshua and Utana could really have a spark in the Holy Ring, it would be a huge piece of news for him to publicize. Gu Xingyin turned around and smiled politely. "Mr. Monroe, are you not going to play with everyone? Call me Augustus, Angela. I thought we were already friends." Augustus showed a slightly melancholy smile. His appearance was top-notch even in the entire Western entertainment circle. If his appearance was spread out, it would probably cause all the female fans to scream. Augustus came over to have a showdown. Westerners did not know how to be reserved, and he felt that he could not hold back anymore. "Angela, you know what I mean, don't you?" Augustus looked at her affectionately. "You are the Utana in my heart, Angela. Can I have the qualifications to protect you in the future?" When he said this, his deep green eyes were full of affection that could drown people, making them reluctant to reject him. Gu Xingyin was silent for a moment before saying, "But there is no result between Utana and Joshua. I'm sorry, Augustus." The hope in Augustus's eyes dimmed. In fact, he had already expected that Angela did not like him. He pulled out a smile. "There is nothing to be sorry about, Angela. This is something that requires mutual consent." Gu Xingyin appreciated his open-mindedness. Augustus continued, "If I'm not wrong, Angela, you don't have a boyfriend, right? In that case, can I sign up? And when you have the idea of a romantic relationship, consider me?" He smiled and said to Gu Xingyin, "I promise I won't pester you, and I won't bring you any trouble. But, Angela, I don't think I can let you go in a short time. If you have a boyfriend, you must tell me immediately and let me give up." This man was so honest that it was impossible to refuse. Gu Xingyin sighed. She didn't have any intention to have any unnecessary relationship with the people in the mission world. I'm sorry, Augustus. Since he was destined not to have one, he might as well extinguish his hope from the very beginning. Augustus didn't expect the other party to be so straightforward, not even giving him a chance. He shrugged his shoulders and a bright smile appeared on his face. Gu Xingyin saw a trace of sadness in his eyes. Come on, have a drink with me. Augustus looked at him with a smile. Now don't reject me anymore. Comfort this lovelorn old man's heart. He was really a gentleman. Gu Xingyin knew that he didn't want her to be too embarrassed. She raised her glass and clinked it with his. Augustus, if you are willing, there are countless good girls in the world waiting to have a romantic relationship with you. Augustus smiled but didn't say anything. There were so many girls in the world, but there was only one Angela. Chapter 599. The next day, the main actors started to say goodbye to each other. They all had their own schedules, and it would probably be the premiere when they saw each other again. During this period, the main actors even had to follow the crew to do some promotion for the movie. However, as the most mysterious actress, Gu Xingyin definitely did not need to show up. The next day, she followed Thomas back to York City on a plane. Thomas told her a piece of good news. Because of her special identity, she did not have any activities before the movie was released, so she could rest for 3 months. But she had to be careful in public places where there were many people. Although her face wasn't very well known, Angela's beauty was too eye-catching. Gu Xingyin nodded. If she really did not want others to see through her, it was very simple. A small disguise spell would do. She was not the only artist under Thomas. After giving some instructions, he left in a hurry. Gu Xingyin tidied herself up and got ready to have a good sleep. She even specifically asked Wella not to wake her up the next morning. In the past half a year, she had never had a good rest on set. It was a dreamless night. However, Gu Xingyin immediately realized that something was wrong when she woke up. This was not her room. She opened her eyes. It was pitch black. The thick curtains covered the window, making it impossible to tell whether it was day or night. However, the vision of an angel was not affected. Gu Xingyin clearly saw a man sitting by her bed and looking at her. She immediately became alert. Not to mention anything else, as an angel, even if her body was seriously injured and most of her power was sealed, her vigilance should not be so weak. She did not even notice that she was in a different place in her sleep. Not to mention, even the system did not remind her at all. Right. The system. Gu Xingyin called out to the system in her heart. There was no response. The system seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep. This man was definitely not an ordinary person. You're awake? The man's deep voice sounded. Gu Xingyin did not make a sound, but the vigilance in her heart was getting stronger. If he was really an ordinary person, he would not be able to tell whether she was awake or not. The lights in the room were turned on, but the man clearly sat there without moving. In the next second, Gu Xingyin was standing on the ground. Under the bright environment, she could clearly see the man's appearance without any hindrance. He was very young, probably in his 20s. He was very handsome. In terms of appearance, he might be comparable to Augustus, but the two of them had completely different temperaments. Augustus had the kind of gentle and affectionate appearance. When he smiled, he was handsome and charming that no woman could resist. Even Gu Xingyin felt oppressed by this man's aura. This kind of aura could only be possessed by someone who had been in control of everything for a long time. His gaze was cold and indifferent, as if everything was nothing but an ant in his eyes. Who are you? As she said this, Gu Xingyin looked around the room she was in and made a simple judgment. This should be the man's home. Who am I? The man repeated her question and shifted his gaze to Gu Xingyin's face. Chapter 600. In the end, Gu Xingyin didn't know who this man was. Because when she asked him, he only looked at her with a gentle gaze. Then, he reached out his hand and gently tucked her loose blonde hair behind her head. Then Gu Xingyin lost consciousness again. In a daze, she heard a man's voice in her ear. Don't let other men get close to you. Don't be tempted by other men. I will be angry. When she woke up, she was already in her room. She was wearing the clothes before she went to bed, and there was no trace of anyone entering or leaving the room. Everything that had happened before was like an illusory dream. But Gu Xingyin knew that it wasn't a dream. Those touches were so real, and there was that strange lotus fragrance on the other person's body. She looked at the time. It was already 5 o'clock in the afternoon. She had slept for a whole day and night. Gu Xingyin got up, and she didn't feel dizzy after sleeping for a long time. Wella was watching TV in the living room. "You're finally awake, Angela." Wella greeted her happily. "The food is already ready, wait a moment." Wella was about to go to the kitchen, but Gu Xingyin stopped her. "Wait a minute, Wella." Gu Xingyin asked. "Did anyone enter my room while I was asleep?" Wella was confused. "I was at home the whole time." "No." She looked at Gu Xingyin in surprise. "Did you lose something, Angela?" Although she knew that Wella probably didn't know, Gu Xingyin was still a bit disappointed. She smiled and shook her head. "No, I just had a nightmare." It was said that she had 3 months of rest, but Thomas came less than a week later. Of course, he was here to look for Gu Xingyin. "Angela, you said that you forgot the past, so I didn't ask you about your talent. Today, Peter contacted me and asked if you would like to try singing the theme song for The Holy Ring." Everyone knew how beautiful Gu Xingyin's voice was. Even when she was filming, a composer in the crew was amazed when he heard her voice. "When I heard Angela speak, I was reminded of the singing bird in the fairy tale. It is a bird that sings for God." The composer also tried his best to persuade Gu Xingyin to become a singer. He even said that he was willing to create the most suitable music for her. However, at that time, Gu Xingyin had just started filming The Holy Ring. She didn't want to leave a bad impression on the director, so she didn't accept his offer. She didn't expect that Peter would personally invite her to sing the theme song. Thomas said, "It's a composer from the production team of The Holy Ring." After he composed the song, he expressed that he must invite you to sing it. "Peter also heard your voice before, and since it would be a good gimmick for you to sing, he agreed to let you give it a try." Thomas couldn't hide the joy on his face. "You have to work hard, Angela. This is a rare opportunity." He didn't tell Gu Xingyin that Peter just wanted her to give it a try. If she didn't pass, he would still find a professional singer to sing. For Peter, who wanted everything to be perfect, he would never allow the movie to be ruined by the theme song after so much effort and preparation. Chapter 601. Gu Xingyin's goal was to make Angela a miracle worker. Singing? No other creature could compare to an angel. As an angel favored by God, they were born to be proficient in all kinds of arts, especially singing. Every day, every angel would sing a hymn for God. Gu Xingyin's performance was completely beyond Peter's expectations. The composer who invited her was even looking at her with sparkling eyes. Thomas, however, found a business opportunity. So, after discussing it with Peter, they made a bold decision. They would create a song for each of the protagonists of The Holy Ring, and add the theme song and ending song to create an album that belonged to The Holy Ring. This was a challenge that no one had ever attempted in the history of film. The cost of producing such an album was very high, and the market for such a limited music was too small. It was not worth it at all. Unless there was a big hit. This possibility was too small. Peter also hesitated, but he received a message from Kenna. He fully supported the production of such an album, and there was only one condition. Let Angela sing. Even Peter, who was used to seeing all kinds of backstage actors, began to think carefully this time. Who was this Angela? Why was Kenna willing to go to such extent for her? Peter vaguely knew who the owner behind Kenna was. It was a behemoth that ordinary people could not imagine. A simple move by such a group could cause a drastic change in the structure of the world. Could it be that Angela was the daughter of a super-rich family? Peter shook his head and gave up thinking about it. What he needed to do now was to let the best team under him create the perfect album for The Holy Ring, and for Angela, the lead singer. Anyway, the investors were willing to spend money, so why would Peter be polite to them? 3 months had finally passed in the midst of all the fans' anxious wait. On December 1st, The Holy Ring premiered. Gu Xingyin, the lead actors, and director Peter were waiting for the premiere to begin in the theater in York City. Gu Xingyin had only seen the half-finished product, so she was still looking forward to this movie. Accompanied by a stunning soundtrack, The story slowly unfolded. Even though he had participated in the filming and knew what kind of plot this movie would have, Gu Xingyin was still shocked. She used to be Ruan Kai, so her appreciation of movies was naturally not bad. From beginning to end, she could only exclaim, "It's perfect." Peter, a stubborn old man who pursued perfection in everything, finally produced such a masterpiece in his lifetime. The forums, the official website of the Holy Ring, and other places had all exploded. Many of the audience members who failed to get tickets had been waiting at these places. Since they couldn't watch the premiere in person, they could only wait for the latest news. However, in the first 10 minutes or so, there were many enthusiastic audiences who had entered the cinema to share their experiences and express their opinions. However, by the time the movie was 24 minutes old, everyone had forgotten about it. At this moment, they only knew one thing. Just like Joshua on the screen, there was only the princess in the white dress left in the whole world. Chapter 602. While the audience in the cinema was immersed in the plot, the fans on the forums and blogs were dumbfounded. What happened? Why did it suddenly become quiet? Did the cinema suddenly cut off the internet? The fans said that they didn't get a ticket, so they could only wait for the live broadcast of the audience. This sudden change really made people very anxious. 10 minutes later, the forum exploded again. This time, it was even more popular than the last time. The entire Holy Ring forum was completely flooded. All the topics were only one. Princess Utana. Love doesn't need a reason. I finally know why Peter said that he found the best actress for Utana. Let's not talk about it anymore. I announced that I have found my true love. Utana, my goddess. When I learned that Peter found a newcomer to play Utana, I actually refused, but now I'm glad. Peter, you're awesome. I love Utana. Look at my ID. The onlookers were confused. They didn't understand why these people suddenly went crazy after a 10-minute blackout, as if they had taken the wrong medicine. There were also some fans who had already guessed a clue from their reactions. Could it be that the actress playing Utana was really that beautiful? Some fans of the #1 beauty of romance came out to express their dissatisfaction. Those who praise Utana, can that actress be as beautiful as our Sophia? I think it must have been Peter's biggest mistake not to choose Sophia. However, someone came out to slap their face. The person who said this sentence is definitely not in front of the big screen now, otherwise, you wouldn't say such a ridiculous statement. I'm a fan of Sophia. Previous poster, don't try to blacklist our Sophia. I'm really convinced by Utana. This group of people was wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves. However, the audience who had been waiting for a long time were already stomping their feet. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Why don't you post a photo? Even if it's not a high-definition photo, you can just take one with your phone. Finally, a kind-hearted person appeared. This kind-hearted person was none other than the publicity team of Holy Ring. For the first time, a video of Utana was released on the official website. This video was only a short 1-minute clip. It was at the 24th minute of the movie when Joshua saw Princess Utana. After Joshua got lost in the forest, he stepped on the soft grass and finally saw a gorgeous castle. The sun shone on the grass in the garden in front of the castle, and a girl in a white dress was picking flowers. She turned around when she heard the noise. The camera zoomed in, and Angela's flawless face entered the audience's line of sight. She seemed to be surprised for a moment, and a trace of curiosity flashed through her clear blue eyes. Then a friendly smile slowly appeared on her face. It stopped abruptly. The video, which was less than a minute long, was viewed hundreds of millions of times in just half an hour. After that, the server of the Holy Ring website was paralyzed. Many of the audience members, who had watched it once, twice, or thrice and were prepared to watch it countless times, were dumbfounded. There were also a lot of people who heard the news, but didn't get to see it in time. Chapter 603. Gu Xingyin was on fire. Perhaps it should be said that Utana was on fire. Before the movie was released, everyone, including Gu Xingyin herself, knew that she would be popular. However, no one expected that the fire would burn so big. The box office of The Holy Ring broke 1 billion in 1 week. Almost all of a sudden, the holy ring, was swept up in a frenzy all over the world. Peter was very confident in his movie, which was very likely to be the pinnacle of his life. He knew that this movie was likely to leave its mark in film history, and was likely to set a record. However, even he did not expect that the box office would explode so much. In the past few days, the corners of his mouth had not relaxed at all. In the entire movie, the most popular person was not the male lead, Augustus, nor the female lead Modis, but Gu Xingyin, who had never appeared in front of the public. As long as there was a discussion about the Holy Ring, the topic would inevitably lead to the peerless Princess Utana. Fanatical fans began to search for information about this actress named Angela on the internet. The name Angela directly rushed to the top of the trending searches on major websites. However, there was very little information that could be found. The latest news was updated by Kenna on the day the Holy Ring was released. The photos of her on the train had also been exposed. So it was her. At that time, Angela seemed to be just a young girl who had just come to the city. In other words, she was really a pure newcomer. Kenna's competitors gritted their teeth and secretly hated themselves for being a step too late. As Gu Xingyin's agent, Thomas was very busy during this period. All kinds of endorsement contracts flew towards him like snowflakes. Fortunately, he was a veteran agent and was quite experienced in dealing with this kind of thing. Those that were not good enough, delete. Those that had a bad reputation, delete. Those that had an impact on the artist's image, delete. In the end, Thomas was busy for a whole week before he arranged Gu Xingyin's schedule for the next half a year. Gu Xingyin also opened a personal account under Thomas's suggestion. On the first day, the number of fans on the account exceeded 1 million. In the evening, Gu Xingyin was sitting on the bed with her eyes closed. If someone were to take a closer look, they would discover that her body was faintly exuding a layer of pale white halo. At the same time, countless tiny light spots were surging towards her from all corners of the world. This was the energy that her fans gave her. The tiny specks of light disappeared into Gu Xingyin's body, healing the wounds on her body and soul that were invisible to the naked eye. This feeling was simply too wonderful. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but moan comfortably. A white light flashed across her body, and a transparent barrier enveloped the entire room. At the same time, 6 huge pure white wings spread out from her body, and she floated up into the air. Gu Xingyin opened her eyes in surprise. She did not expect that the power of these fans gathered together would be so great. According to this trend, she silently felt the speed of recovery of her injuries in the afternoon. It would take at most 3 years for the injuries on her body to be completely healed. This was definitely a pleasant surprise. Suddenly, the whole room darkened. Gu Xingyin could feel that she had lost her perception of the outside world. Chapter 604. Her heart skipped a beat, and she had a vague guess. As expected, a man in a black suit had silently appeared in her room. Gu Xingyin's eyes were filled with vigilance. She didn't care that the other party had seen Angela's real body. How could someone who could break through the 6-winged angel's barrier be an ordinary person? Can you tell me who you are? Gu Xingyin wanted to ask the system directly, but ever since that night, when she was brought to the room by the man, the system seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep. No matter how she called out, there was no response. The man wasn't in a hurry to answer her question. Instead, he stared at her with her wings open and floating in the air without blinking. Very beautiful, he praised. He opened his arms and made a gesture as if he was hugging her. Gu Xingyin's body flew towards him uncontrollably and fell into his arms. Gu Xingyin didn't want to resist this man from the depths of her soul. It wasn't an instinct of Angela's body, but from the depths of her soul. I already told you last time that I'm your lover. The man hugged her inside. But I really don't know you. Gu Xingyin furrowed her brows. She couldn't lie to herself. She longed for this embrace that was filled with the light lotus fragrance. But she didn't like this feeling of not being able to control herself. Follow your heart, the man said in a low voice. Gu Xingyin heard a name that made her tremble. Ain. You called me. Sure. Her lips were suddenly covered by a finger. The man said softly, don't say it. You'll be noticed. He didn't say what would be noticed, but Gu Xingyin understood. It was the law that was constantly monitoring this world. He called her Ain. He actually knew that she wasn't Angela. Gu Xingyin's eyelashes fluttered. Although she didn't have any memories, her heart was filled with joy and satisfaction. She didn't know where this feeling came from, but she indulged herself in this feeling. A thought suddenly rose in her mind. She looked at the man in front of her seriously. He still had that indifferent look on his face, cold and noble. "Can you tell me that you love me?" Gu Xingyin looked at him without blinking. A trace of surprise flashed through the man's eyes. Even if she had no memory, she would still subconsciously act coquettishly towards him? He couldn't seem to refuse her request at all. He thought helplessly. The man hugged her waist and rubbed the base of her angel wings with both hands. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but tremble. This was the most sensitive part of an angel's body. The man gently lowered his head, and his hot breath fell on her ear. "I love you, Ain." The last two words appeared directly in her mind. Gu Xingyin took the initiative to kiss him. She felt like she was going crazy. She knew nothing about this man, not even his name. Such a dangerous man. Her rationality told her that she should be vigilant and avoid him. But she couldn't help it. The desire from the depths of her soul made her want to get close to him. It was as if a voice in her heart was telling her, "Don't be afraid of him. He won't hurt you. You love him." She loved him. Gu Xingyin closed her eyes. If this was really a dream, she wouldn't wake up again. Chapter 605. When Gu Xingyin woke up the next day, there was still a smile on her face. That person's words seemed to linger in her ears. "You're too outstanding. The way those men look at you makes me want to destroy the world." So direct and domineering. She asked about his identity, but he only told her his identity in this world. Gu Xingyin finally knew why it was so easy for her to sign Kenna. She also knew why Kenna had been giving her the green light. He had been silently supporting her from behind. She thought about the rumors that people had about her, saying that she had an incredible backer. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but laugh. Looking at it like that, it really was true. As for his true identity, the man said that it wasn't suitable for her to know yet. He couldn't even say his name in this world. Even if it sounded in Gu Xingyin's mind, she couldn't. She got up in a good mood and saw Weena, who was preparing breakfast. She knew that Wella wasn't simple, but she didn't think that she would be the person that man put by her side. Gu Xingyin didn't plan on exposing her. "Host." A voice sounded in Gu Xingyin's ears. Gu Xingyin hurriedly asked, "System, what's wrong?" The system's white light flashed. "Nothing, just sleeping for a while." Gu Xingyin suddenly asked, "System, tell me, did I lose a part of my memory?" The system was very honest. "Yes, host." Gu Xingyin's eyes sharpened. "Is it about my lover?" The system didn't say anything. Gu Xingyin already knew the system's way of doing things. His silence was a tacit agreement. Gu Xingyin asked, "Why did you erase my memory? Can you restore it for me?" The system replied, "Host, I'm very sorry. In this world, I can't restore your memory. Once the mission is over, you'll naturally remember everything." Gu Xingyin thought of the man who was so strong that it made her heart tremble. Is it related to him? It was obvious who she was referring to. The system once again replied with silence. Gu Xingyin fell silent. The system thought that the host was angry. After a while it said, "Host, please don't think too much. Erasing your memory is out of kindness." Gu Xingyin was not angry. She understood the system well. After so many worlds, she had long regarded the system as her good partner. She knew that the system would not do anything to harm her. She was just wondering why it had to erase her memories of her lover. However, she didn't have any memory of this, so she couldn't find any trace of it. Her lover seemed to be very mysterious. Moreover, the system seemed to know of his existence. The system said that he would know everything after completing the mission. Gu Xingyin could only suppress his curiosity and wait for the moment when the secret would be revealed. She put all her heart and soul into completing the mission. The most important thing right now was to gather more fans and heal Angela's injuries as soon as possible. Gu Xingyin received a notification from Thomas that there would be a press conference for The Holy Ring next Monday. She had been specially told by Peter that she had to be there. This would also be the first time that Angela, who played Utana, appeared in public. Thomas attached great importance to Gu Xingyin's appearance this time. He wanted Princess Utana in the Holy Ring to be as beautiful as she was in the real world. Chapter 606. The venue of the press conference was already packed with fans. Their hands were filled with all kinds of posters and even banners. Gu Xingyin had met up with the main cast in advance. The moment Mortis saw her, he put on a hopeless expression. "It's over, Angela. I already have a feeling that I'm going to be abandoned by the fans today." Shock flashed through the eyes of the others, and a few actresses even joked. "Angela, I must sit further away from you today." As expected, when they entered the arena, they caused a huge wave of screams and screams. "Utana! Utana!" If you listen carefully, you would find that the fans' voices had drowned out the other voices. Gu Xingyin only felt that there was a lot of warm energy gathering towards her from all directions. She couldn't help but smile. There was a burst of gasps around. The media's shutters couldn't wait to use up all the film at this moment. Modi's was a little helpless. This was the first time she was so invisible since she became the movie queen. When the director and actors were seated, the media's opportunity came. "Director Peter, where did you find Miss Angela? Miss Angela, you became famous with the movie The Holy Ring. What do you think about it?" "Director Peter, The Holy Ring is a big hit. How much do you think the global box office will be this time?" "Augustus, in the plot, Joshua has always been secretly in love with Princess Utana. Your deep affection in the movie moved countless people. May I ask, do you and Miss Angela hope to be a couple in real life?" "Miss Modis, I'm your fan. Do you think you can win the movie queen title again with The Holy Ring?" Augustus and Modis were familiar with dealing with such situations. Needless to say, Peter was quite good at dealing with the media. Only Angela was a newcomer with no experience. When Augustus heard some questions, he looked at Gu Xingyin worriedly, worried that she couldn't handle it. However, it turned out that he was overthinking. Gu Xingyin maintained a gentle and decent smile on her face. When she encountered some questions that were really difficult to answer, she would directly wink at the reporter and act cute. The reporter was instantly dazed by her charm. When he came to his senses, he found that he had already been pushed far away by his peers. Augustus couldn't help but laugh at this scene. Only then did he remember that Angela was only an 18-year-old girl. When she was on the set, her maturity and hard work often made people forget her age. He didn't expect her to be so mischievous. Augustus's gentle smile was faithfully captured by the camera. The subsequent impact of this press conference was huge. Angela's name and the face that the media called Beauty of the Century once again swept across the headlines with an unstoppable attack. There was another piece of news that came along with this. The movie King Augustus and the popular newcomer Angela are suspected to be real. Augustus is affectionate, and Joshua and Princess Utana are connected in real life? Along with this headline, Angela was answering the reporter's question with a smile on her face. Augustus was looking at her from the side, and he didn't even try to hide the love and affection in his eyes. Chapter 607. Thomas called her immediately. "Angela, you and Augustus?" Gu Xingyin replied calmly, "It's a rumor." Thomas was relieved. Angela had just stepped into the industry, and it wasn't a good thing to be involved in scandals so early. Unlike some newbies who needed to rely on scandals to increase their popularity, Angela had Kenner's support, and she didn't need to use such methods to lower her status. However, less than a minute later, Thomas heard a voice on the phone. "I have a lover." Thomas's heart tightened. "Who is it? How far have you two progressed?" Gu Xingyin was about to answer when she suddenly said, "Come to my place tomorrow." She hung up the phone and smiled. "Why are you here?" The man who had appeared in her room looked at Gu Xingyin gently and said, "I saw the news." Gu Xingyin blinked and said so. The man opened his arms, and Gu Xingyin snuggled into his embrace. "I'll hold a press conference tomorrow and announce that you're my fiancé." He wouldn't allow any man to covet her, not even scandals. Gu Xingyin smiled and said, "Okay." The next day, Thomas saw a man sitting on the sofa when he arrived at Gu Xingyin's apartment. He felt that this person looked familiar. The man introduced himself. "Hello, I'm Gerald Byron, Angela's fiancé." Byron. Something flashed through Thomas's mind. He looked at the unbelievably young man in front of him in shock, and matched him with an image in his mind. Thomas felt that he couldn't breathe properly. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Byron," he said dryly. "Thank you for taking care of Angela during this time. I'll talk to Mr. Matt." The Mr. Matt he was talking about was the president of Kenner Pictures. Thomas looked at Byron in front of him, and then at Angela who was standing at the side. He suddenly understood everything. It was no wonder that Kenna had spent so much effort to groom such a newcomer. The owner behind Kenna was a subsidiary of the Byron Group. This was the future boss's lady boss. Who would dare to not treat her well? A smile quickly appeared on his face. "Mr. Byron, you are too kind. Of course we Kenna will do our best to support a talented actress like Ms. Angela. This time, I'm here to hold a press conference to officially announce my relationship with Angela. Tell Kenna to get ready." Gerald Byron threw a bombshell casually. Thomas was a little dizzy from the shock. He asked cautiously, then, "Miss Angela, are you planning to pursue a long-term career in the film and television industry, or just for fun?" He didn't ask. Gerald looked at Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin thought for a bit. Based on the current speed, this body's injuries would be healed in about 2 years. If it's just because you want to heal your body, I can do it for you. Ain, do you like it or not? His voice directly entered her mind. Was he just asking about her preferences? Gu Xingyin didn't want to stay in the entertainment industry if it wasn't for the mission. Chapter 608. Thomas left in a daze. At this moment, his feelings could not be described as not complicated. It was not easy to find a newcomer. Angela had the looks, acting skills, and background. She could definitely become a legend. Unfortunately, she did not want to be in this circle. More importantly, he could not persuade her with the attitude of a manager. When he thought about Angela's identity, and how he had a supportive relationship with her for a period of time, Thomas felt relieved after confirming that he had done his best to help Angela, and had never neglected her, because she was a newbie. If he could maintain a good relationship with her, even Kenna's people would have to be polite to him in the future. After Thomas left, Gu Xingyin looked at the man called Gerald in confusion. "System, what is his identity?" Gu Xingyin asked. The system's body lit up in white light. It was helpless. The host had asked it this question several times. Unfortunately, Gu Xingyin, who had all the memories related to that man sealed, did not realize it at all. "Host, you can ask directly. If he is willing to tell you, he will tell you. Don't ask me, Ain." The man in front of her looked at her. His mouth did not move, but his voice was transmitted into her mind. "This world is my selfishness. I can't wait until you are strong enough to be with me." The man looked at her quietly. Gu Xingyin saw the determination in his eyes. She gave up on her question and asked, "Do you know my real identity?" The man knew that she was trying to understand him in a roundabout way. He did not care about her little thoughts and nodded. "I know everything about you, including this little thing." He looked at the system, who was preparing to play dead. Gu Xingyin's eyes lit up, but the man covered her mouth. "Don't ask anymore. Treat this world as a vacation. Forget about the so-called mission and relax. Aren't you afraid of violating your character setting?" "No. Don't care about anything." The man nodded. "What if I want to destroy this world?" Gu Xingyin turned her eyes and asked. The man frowned slightly, as if he was seriously considering this question. "If you like." Before he could finish, Gu Xingyin had already rushed over and hugged him. "I'm so happy." For the first time, the man smiled in front of Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin never knew that a person could smile so beautifully. The media referred to the smile of Princess Utana, played by Angela, as the smile of God. But Gu Xingyin felt that the smile of the person in front of her was the real smile of God. As long as you're happy. The next day, Angela, who had become famous all over the world because of her role in the Holy Ring, held a press conference. "I will retire from the entertainment industry." Angela, who was speaking, had a calm expression on her face. She did not look like the sweet and obedient girl that the media had seen. There was an uproar as countless reporters scrambled to throw out their questions. There's no reason. I don't want to. After Gu Xingyin said this, he left everyone dumbfounded. This should be the most willful declaration of retirement in history, right? Everyone thought in a daze. There was no lot of true feelings, no necessary reason, just a simple, I don't want to stay. She did not miss her current popularity and status. Whether it was the media or the fans, they were all waiting for Kenna's reaction. In their opinion, Kenna would never tolerate his artists doing such a thing. Chapter 609. However, they were disappointed. Kenna didn't make any statement or condemn them. It was as if they didn't see the willful press conference. As Angela's manager, Thomas acted as if he didn't know about this. However, the media didn't wait for a statement from Kenna Pictures, but a press conference from the Byron Group. The leader of the Byron Group, who had always lived in people's imagination, appeared in front of the public with Angela, who was as beautiful as an angel. What was going on? Some sharp-eyed people had already seen the same diamond rings on their fingers. The handsome man looked indifferent, as if he was an emperor looking down on everyone. And Angela, who was standing next to him, seemed to be a different person in everyone's eyes. In everyone's eyes, Angela was a girl with an innocent temperament. However, although her expression wasn't as cold as the man next to her, it had always been indifferent, as if the enthusiastic reporters and flashes didn't exist. To use an analogy, she was a sweet and innocent little princess before, but now she was a cold queen with a strong aura. Could it be that this was Angela's true face? Gerald didn't say much. He simply announced the marriage of the two. Both of them didn't want to communicate with the reporters, so they left their representatives to answer the media's questions. However, the media said that they still had a lot of questions waiting for the two to answer. The two representatives were obviously experienced, and they spoke in an official tone. There was no way to pry any useful information out of them. However, the two people involved were nowhere to be found. When he saw the news, Augustus was at a private party. People in their circle often had to attend all kinds of gatherings. For example, the people who could attend this small party were first-tier big shots in the circle. He stared at his phone in a daze. Modi's walked over. She was wearing a red dress today, and her flaming red lips were radiant. Come back to your senses, Augustus. Modi sighed in her heart, and called out to her old friend. With her identity, she probably acted in the movie on a whim. Looking at her now, even the Angela we saw was just an illusory shadow. And, I know. Augustus raised his head and interrupted her words, smiling without any haze at all. You're underestimating me, Modi's. I'm fine. Modi's looked at him and shrugged. Okay, I hope so. After Modi's left, Augustus stopped smiling. Modi's understood him, so she left. He knew that she was going to get married. She and the Angela he knew were two different people. He used to think that he was very close to her, but in fact, she and he were from two different worlds. He knew all this, but his heart still hurt. Augustus raised his head and drank all the wine in his cup. Angela was like a gentle breeze. She quietly appeared in the holy ring. And when the holy ring ended, she silently disappeared from everyone's sight. What she left behind for everyone was a legend of beauty that no one could surpass. Chapter 610. A week after The Holy Ring aired, the album of the same name was also put on sale. At first, only some die-hard fans of the movie bought it, and most of them just wanted to keep it as a souvenir. However, after listening to it, when I bought this album, I was a little hesitant. After all, the price was not cheap for me, but I really liked this movie. But when the music started playing, I felt that it was really worth it. I feel like my body and mind were baptized by this music. I saw the list of singers. It's actually Angela. Everyone was surprised. They didn't expect that the girl who shocked everyone in the movie had such talent. Unfortunately, no matter how many people liked her, no matter how many people called for her to come back under her handwriting, she never appeared in front of people again. She became a goddess in the hearts of countless people, and no one could surpass her. What was Gu Xingyin doing? She and Gerald went to all kinds of places that were rarely seen, such as the ice fields in the north, the deep sea in the south where no one had ever been, and the dangerous areas deep in the forest where there were pairs of fierce beasts. She didn't like places with a lot of people. Without the constraints of the mission, she didn't have to worry about being detected by the law. She could completely indulge herself and do whatever she wanted to do. Her appearance hadn't aged for 100 years, but Gerald's body was a real human. You can play here for a while. Gerald looked at her. His face was full of wrinkles, but his aura was still not to be underestimated. Gu Xingyin didn't say anything. What was the point of staying in a place where he wasn't around? The moment Gerald left this world, Gu Xingyin said softly to the system, "Leave this world." In the blink of an eye, she returned to the pure white space. At the same time, the sealed memories returned to her mind. This time, she didn't immediately go to the next world. Instead, she frowned and asked, "System, why are my memories sealed?" She remembered that he once told her that in a world, there couldn't be two outsiders like them at the same time. But why did she only forget about him? Why didn't she forget everything? Why wasn't she expelled from that world? The system transmitted something directly into her mind. Just like what he said earlier, the laws of the world were very strict with each world. Outsiders with powerful souls like them were not welcomed by the laws of the world. Unless one was so powerful that the laws of the world could not do anything about it. Once one was exposed, one would be directly expelled from a certain world like before. In order to be able to accompany her in every world, that person had sealed his soul power in every life, preventing the world's laws from noticing him. But just as he said, he was selfish. He wanted to see what Ain was like in the mission world while he remembered everything. Furthermore, he had to start over in every world, while Gu Xingyin had to bear all the memories of the two of them together. He felt sorry for his lover. In the end, he reached an agreement with the laws of this world. No one knew what he had done. The laws of this world no longer interfered with the affairs of the two of them. They even tacitly agreed that Gu Xingyin, an outsider, interfered with the fate of the creatures of this world. The only condition was to seal the memories of his lover. As for why the laws did this, it may only be known when Gu Xingyin became strong to a certain extent one day. Chapter 611. System, this won't be the same as last time, right? Before entering the next world, Gu Xingyin asked the system. Don't worry, host. Having received the assurance, Gu Xingyin closed his eyes in relief and waited for the teleportation. This world was a female-dominated world where imperial power reigned supreme. Gu Xingyin's body was the eldest daughter of the Phoenix Emperor of the Heavenly Phoenix Dynasty, Feng Chang'e. It was said that the moment she was born, there was a natural phenomenon. Colorful clouds filled the sky and hundreds of birds gathered in the palace, singing loudly. The Phoenix Emperor was overjoyed and named her Chang'e as the crown prince. Ever since she was born, Feng Chang'e had been doted on by everyone. She didn't let down the expectations of the Phoenix Emperor and the Heavenly Monarch Dynasty's people. She was born with intelligence at an early age. She had an eidetic memory and an exceptional talent in martial arts. Even the Phoenix Emperor had always taught her as the crown prince. However, as her brothers and sisters were born one by one, the younger sisters who idolized their elder sister also had their own thoughts. Because of their different statuses and the fact that she was taught by the Phoenix Emperor alone, Feng Chang'e was not very close to her siblings, except for her own sister, Feng Mingge, who was also one of the 8 daughters of the Phoenix Emperor. Feng Mingge was 4 years younger than Feng Chang'e and loved to stick to her elder sister since she was young. Feng Chang'e loved this spoiled and spoiled sister very much. When Feng Chang'e was 14 years old, she was betrothed to Shi Qingyi, the eldest son of the Marquis of Wenyuan's Shi family. Feng Chang'e did not have any romantic feelings for this cousin who was 1 year younger than her. She was just following her mother's wishes to choose a crown prince who was beneficial to her. She had always been a perfect crown prince. She thought that she would slowly come into contact with the imperial court and become the new emperor of the Heavenly Phoenix Dynasty when her mother grew old. Something unexpected happened very quickly. When she and Shi Qingyi were dressed casually at the Lantern Festival, someone leaked the crown prince's whereabouts, and they were met with a well-planned assassination. When the assassin's blade was about to touch Feng Changa's body, Shi Qingyi, who had been standing beside her, pushed her away and took the fatal blow himself. It was at that moment that Huang Changge placed this cousin and future emperor in his heart. She thought that she could not let down a person who was willing to die for her at a critical moment. Fortunately, Shi Qingyi was rescued. Huang Changge began to treat Shi Qingyi well. He told Shi Qingyi his secrets and even sent out the secret forces of the crown prince to ensure his safety. Huang Changge felt that if she succeeded the throne in the future, she must not be like her father. She did not want Shi Qingyi to be as unhappy as her father. However, before any of this could be realized, the imperial edict from the royal concubine arrived at the crown prince's palace. Feng Change looked at the contents of the imperial edict in disbelief. She looked at the pile of secret letters, found in the secret compartment of her study. There were even stolen goods where she cursed the Phoenix Emperor to die early. Finally, it was Shi Qingyi who was standing behind the messenger. Feng Change was imprisoned by the furious Phoenix sovereign. She had never understood why Shi Qingyi would betray her and frame her. Until Huang Mingge's arrival. The little girl who liked to tug on her sister's sleeve and act spoiled had grown into a beautiful and noble young lady. Sister, are you confused as to why cousin Qingyi would do that? Chapter 6:12. Huang Changge looked at her in shock and disappointment. Ever since she was imprisoned, she had been thinking about why Shi Qingyi would betray her. But no matter how she thought about it, she had never linked it to Huang Mingge. In Huang Changge's heart, her younger sister had always been a delicate flower that needed to be protected. Look, it's that look again. Huang Mingge looked at her with resentment and unwillingness. You're always looking down on your siblings and me, thinking that we should enjoy your kindness because you're the emperor's eldest daughter, the crown prince. But why? I am also the empress' eldest daughter. You were just born a few years earlier than me. Huang Mingge realized that she had lost control of her emotions. She reached out to tidy up her hair and said softly, Cousin Qingyi is the same. Cousin Qingyi is so outstanding, but you only used him as a tool to strengthen your position through marriage. I like him so much. Tell me, how can I be willing to accept this? Huang Changge said softly, so you worked together with him to put on such a show during the Lantern Festival? She was not stupid. In fact, she was very smart. But Huang Changge had trusted Shi Qingyi and her younger sister too much in the past. She never thought that one day, she would be stabbed by the person she trusted the most. Huang Changge closed her eyes. She did not want to say anything more. That man, he did not see how devoted she had been to him for such a long time. This younger sister, she had always been obedient to her since they were young. She thought that it was charity. For some people, even if you cut out your heart for them, they would still despise you. Huang Mingge looked at Huang Changge with resentment. She was like this. Even if she was imprisoned, even if the empress despised her, she was still so arrogant. Even if Huang Mingge did not want to admit it, Huang Changge was born with a different temperament from ordinary people. In addition, she had been raised as a noble in the world for more than 10 years. None of her siblings, including herself, could compare to her. This was one of the reasons why she hated her. With such an outstanding successor in front of her, the empress did not have any other children in her eyes. She gave all her hopes and motherly love to her eldest daughter. Huang Changge suddenly opened his eyes. I would like to ask, does father know about this? Huang Mingge sneered. At this time, father has been kneeling in Mother Empress Palace, pleading for you. Huang Changge was relieved. No matter what, not everyone in this world had abandoned her. Huang Mingge took out a dagger from her sleeve. Huang Changge, don't worry. Don't come out for the rest of your life. Father, I will take good care of it for you. I will also govern this empire well for you. She smiled and stabbed the dagger into her stomach without hesitation. Huang Changge, who was imprisoned in the Crown Prince Palace, suddenly went crazy and stabbed his sister, the Eighth Highness, who had gone to visit him out of worry. Now the Eighth Highness was still unconscious. The Phoenix Emperor was furious, and from then on he completely gave up on this eldest daughter of his. She issued an imperial edict, stripping Huang Changge of her position as the crown prince. She left her to fend for herself in the cold palace, and no one was allowed to visit her. A former crown prince who was despised by the phoenix and could not make a comeback, it was easy to imagine what kind of treatment he would receive. In less than 2 years, Huang Chang'e died of illness in the palace. Chapter 6:13. Gu Xingyin snapped out of her daze and realized that she was lying on a soft couch. She sat up and casually glanced at her surroundings. This was a palace. The decorations in the palace were all rare treasures. It was extravagant and luxurious. This was Gu Xingyin's evaluation. Crown Princess Feng Chang'e's palace. Looking at the side palace, it was clear that the Phoenix Emperor's love for her eldest daughter was not in vain. Shi Qingyi had reported her and the Phoenix Emperor had locked her up in the palace in a fit of anger. The Phoenix Emperor still had high hopes for her daughter. She had always treated her as her successor. This empire would be hers sooner or later. She did not believe that her eldest daughter would do such a stupid thing. Even though Gu Xingyin was locked up, no one dared to shortchange her of the crown princess's allowance. Feng Chang'e stood up. She wasn't wearing shoes. The floor was covered with a thick layer of lamb wool that was offered by the Western shepherd. It was very soft and comfortable. Calculating the time, it was about time for Huang Minga to show off in front of her. System. Draw the ability of a random world, Gu Xingyin said. The system's white light flashed. Okay, host. The dark energy of the blood kindred? Gu Xingyin was not very happy, because, can I use the dark magic of the blood kindred? She asked cautiously. No, host. It is beyond the range of this world's martial arts. Gu Xingyin, I am already familiar with the system's tricks. I know that things are not that simple. The system continued. Host can still use some of the blood kindred's special abilities, such as rapid healing of wounds. You can also use the blood kindred queen's seduction. However, the effect will be limited and will not be as powerful. In short, it had to be within the range of a human. Better than nothing. Gu Xingyin nodded. Huang Minga was coming. She had to think about how to deal with this good sister. 3 days later, Huang Minga came as expected. Walking in the clear Phoenix Palace, which symbolized the status of the crown princess, Huang Minga could not help but feel indignant. There was clear evidence of Huang Chang'e's intentions towards the empress, but the empress only locked her up. She even allowed her to live in the clear Phoenix Palace, which symbolized her status and identity. Mother Empress, you are really too biased. She lowered her eyes, hiding her disbelief, and walked into the palace. She pushed the door open and saw Huang Chang'e sitting in front of a desk fiddling with a vase of flowers. She could not suppress the anger in her heart. Because he was imprisoned in the palace, Huang Chang'e was dressed very casually. He didn't wear the fiery red phoenix robe that symbolized his status as the crown prince. Instead, he wore a simple white robe. She didn't have any complicated and luxurious accessories on her body. Even her long hair was simply tied up with a silver white ribbon. Huang Chang'e had never had Chang'e looked Huang Minga. In her impression, this elder sister of hers was always dressed in a robe that symbolized the status of the crown prince, luxurious and majestic beyond compare. She always felt that no matter who it was, they would be able to display the noble bearing of a royal family. Huang Chang'e's unparalleled aura, which was praised by others, was only displayed by the most noble of clothes. But Huang Chang'e used reality to tell her that some people did not need clothes. Chapter 6:14. Even though she was dressed in plain clothes and black hair, it could not hide the noble and dignified aura that Huang Chang'e exuded. She was currently placing her hands on a few flower branches in the vase. Her slender and fair fingers were resting on the bright red flowers. There was a kind of soul-stirring beauty to it. Huang Minga lowered her head and looked at herself. Today, when she came to see Huang Chang'e, she had specially dressed up. She wanted to use her own success to stimulate Huang Chang'e. But now she was the one who was stimulated. Minga. Huang Chang'e looked up and saw her. She seemed very happy. Are you here to see me? Huang Chang'e had perfectly inherited her mother's magnificent and dignified beauty. In terms of appearance, she was the most outstanding among her siblings. When she smiled, Huang Minga felt that the entire hall seemed to light up. This made Huang Minga even more depressed. Why? Was Huang Chang'e so lucky? She sneered. That's right, my sister. I am here to see you. Huang Chang'e stopped smiling. She could tell that this sister of hers did not come with good intentions. She was a little disappointed and said lightly, Minga, are you here to laugh at me? Huang Minga sneered. Huang Chang'e, do you think that you still have a chance to turn things around? Huang Chang'e looked at her in disbelief. It was as if this was the first time she had met this sister that she had loved since she was young. This girl who looked at her coldly and looked at her with disgust was actually Minga? Or was this her true self? Huang Chang'e felt that her life all these years was a joke. Her cousin, who had always treated her well, had betrayed her. Her sister, who had always doted on her, was just a hypocrite. She put away her thoughts and said lightly, What do you want to do? Huang Minga smiled and said, Of course, I am here to tell you something. I can't let my good sister not know how she became like this, right? She started to tell her when she had reached an agreement with Shi Qingyi. She also told her how she had placed the so-called evidence in her secret places. One by one, one by one. Even though Gu Xingyin already knew the truth, but when she heard Huang Minga's boastful tone, she still felt an indescribable anger. She listened to every word without missing a single word, and her expression remained calm. So, what do you want to do today, Minga? Huang Minga looked at her strangely. Don't you feel angry? Don't you feel hatred? Aren't you disappointed? Huang Chang'e glanced at her indifferently and did not answer her. Huang Minga stood up and walked quickly to Huang Chang'e. Yes, that was it. Even though she was now suspected by the Queen Mother and imprisoned, she still looked at him with that arrogant look on her face. She remembered her purpose for coming here today, and her gaze became extremely fierce. Huang Chang'e, aren't you relying on the fact that the Empress dotes on you? Today, I will not let you have the chance to make a comeback. At this moment, Huang Chang'e suddenly raised his head. She looked at Huang Minga without blinking and said softly, You hate me. Huang Minga suddenly paused. She felt that there was a strange charm in Huang Chang'e's voice. She laughed coldly and said, Yes, I hate you. Huang Chang'e continued, You can't wait to kill me with a knife. Huang Minga revealed a strange smile. Yes, I can't wait to kill you with a knife. Without hesitation, she took out the knife that she had hidden in her sleeve and stabbed it towards Gu Xingyin. Chapter 6:15. Gu Xingyin slowly fell to the ground as she felt the cold blade piercing her body. However, Huang Minga let go of her hand as if she was scalded. She looked at the blood on her wound in a daze. She had wanted to put on a show, but why couldn't she control herself? All she wanted to do was to make Huang Chang'e disappear. She lowered her head and looked at the unconscious Huang Chang'e. Her heart was in a mess. What should she do? It was no secret that she had entered Clear Phoenix Palace. Now that Huang Chang'e had become like this, everyone would suspect her. There must be a way. Yes, there must be a way. She even looked coldly at the unconscious Huang Chang'e on the ground. This was a great opportunity. If Huang Chang'e didn't wake up. Your Highness, the immortal dew flower tea you ordered. The door opened and Huang Chang'e's head made by Exine walked in with something. She was stunned by the situation in the hall. The tray in her hand fell to the ground and the crisp sound of porcelain cups falling to the ground could be heard. Your Highness. Someone. Huang Minga panicked and knew that the best time had passed. There were a lot of messy footsteps around him. There were also people talking. He could vaguely hear a dignified female voice questioning something. So noisy. Gu Xingyin was a little depressed. She wanted to open her eyes, but the weakness in her body made her unable to move. Darkness came and she fell into a deep sleep once again. At the same time, the woman in luxurious clothes who had been guarding the bed looked at her eldest daughter, who was still motionless. She turned her head and questioned the imperial physician. Didn't you say that Chang'e is out of danger? Why hasn't she woken up? The imperial physician who was called was a thin middle-aged woman. She replied, Your Majesty, His Highness the Crown Prince is indeed fine. As for why he hasn't woken up, it might be because he lost too much blood. Her back was also drenched in cold sweat. That stab had hit her vitals. At that time, all the imperial physicians in the imperial hospital had been called over by the furious Her Majesty the Phoenix Emperor. If my Chang'e doesn't wake up, all of you can go and accompany her. Fortunately, His Highness the Crown Prince was blessed by the heavens. Even with such a fatal injury, he miraculously escaped from danger. However, he still hadn't woken up. The imperial physician was also secretly complaining. If His Highness still didn't wake up, she was afraid that she would be torn to pieces by the furious Phoenix Emperor. When the Phoenix Emperor heard the imperial physician mention that he had lost too much blood, a cold glint flashed through his long and narrow eyes. Outside the Sky Phoenix Palace's hall, the 8th Prince Huang Minga was kneeling. She glanced at her pale and bloodless eldest daughter lying on the bed. She coldly ordered the palace servants and imperial physicians to take good care of her. Then she got up and went to the outer room. Huang Minga had already been kneeling outside the palace for 2 days and 2 nights. Every day, countless palace servants and ministers would pass by the heavenly Phoenix Palace. Huang Minga knew that these people might be secretly discussing about her. She felt incomparably ashamed, but she did not dare to get up. That day, the Phoenix Emperor, who had received the news, hurried over. She wanted to go over and defend herself, but the Phoenix was furious and directly slapped her face. "You useless thing, go kneel outside the palace and reflect on your actions." Her face was burning as she watched Huang Chang'e being carried by her own mother and escorted by everyone to Her Majesty's Sky Phoenix Palace. "I will remember today's humiliation." Chapter 616. 8th Princess, Her Majesty summons you to enter. A palace servant walked to her side. Huang Minga heaved a sigh of relief. It was a good thing that she was allowed to stand up. She stood up shakily, and she even fell down again because her legs were too weak. The palace servant beside her stood quietly with his hands by his side. If it was any other time, someone would have already rushed over to help her up. A bunch of people who stepped on the weak. She forced herself to stand up, and even smiled at the palace servant. "Sorry for the trouble." After speaking, she slowly walked towards Heavenly Phoenix Palace. The Phoenix Emperor was sitting on the main seat in the side hall, holding a cup of freshly brewed tea in her hand. Huang Minga walked very slowly. Because she had not drunk a drop of water for 2 days, her complexion looked very bad. Her usually rosy lips were even dry and cracked. When had the 8th princess, who had always been doted on, suffered like this? Huang Minga's weak and powerless appearance did not arouse the Phoenix Emperor's pity. Her Chang'e was still lying unconscious on the bed. Huang Minga saw that her mother did not even look at her with pity. She hated it in her heart and obediently knelt down. She had always been like this. Other than Huang Chang'e, no one else could obtain her true love. To her other children, she had always been a high and mighty monarch. She was even stingy with a smile. Only in front of the eldest princess Huang Chang'e would she be an ordinary mother. Since Huang Minga was born, she knew that her biological sister, who was the crown prince, was different from her. She did not live with her. She lived in the most honorable Heavenly Phoenix Palace since she was young, and was personally taught by her mother, who did not smile. It was only until she was 14 years old that she moved into the Clear Phoenix Palace, which symbolized the identity of the crown prince. "Mother Empress, I know my mistake." Huang Minga came back to her senses and admitted her mistake. The Phoenix Emperor's hand paused and she placed the teacup on the table. The teacup and the table made a crisp sound. "Tell me, what crimes have you committed?" Her cold voice came down from the top. Huang Minga had already thought of a set of excuses in these 2 days. "That day, I was prepared to reason with my sister. Imperial Mother, you dote on her so much, yet she actually did such a thing. This son is angry and wants to question her. Instead, he started arguing with Big Sister behind us." As she spoke, tears fell from her eyes. "Mother Empress, I was wrong. I was just angry that elder sister let you down. I don't know why. The Phoenix Emperor looked down at his daughter. Because they were twin sisters, his 8 daughters looked very similar to Chang'e. But Chang'e never had such an expression. Even when she was found out to have framed her, she still kept her back straight. She was always the most proud and satisfied crown princess. "So you only wanted to seek justice for me. But in the end, you ended up using a knife on your own sister? The Phoenix Emperor's voice was very calm. Huang Minga couldn't tell if she believed her words. I watched Chang'e grow up. No one knows her skills better than I do. If I didn't have absolute trust in my only biological sister, how could I let her succeed? Mother Empress, I usually use this knife for self-defense. I only wanted to use it to scare elder sister. I didn't really want to use it. Huang Minga knew that she couldn't avoid bringing a weapon into the Clear Phoenix Palace. She could only hope that after all these years, the Empress still had some mother-daughter feelings for her, and chose to believe her. Chapter 617. The Phoenix Emperor didn't say anything. Huang Minga knelt down anxiously. She knew the methods of her Empress mother. Other than her elder sister, who could still enjoy a trace of warmth from her, no one else would be able to get much affection from her. At this time, the Phoenix Emperor's personal maid came in happily. Your Majesty, His Highness the Crown Prince is awake. Joy flashed across the Phoenix Emperor's face. Chang'e is awake? She stood up and looked at Huang Minga kneeling on the ground. I'll go see Chang'e. As for you, let's see what Chang'e wants. A gust of cold wind blew past Huang Minga's face. It seemed to chill her to the bone. Chang'e meant. She thought that Huang Chang'e would never be able to make a comeback in this life, so she told her the truth. How could she let her go? Huang Minga went limp. Gu Xingyin felt pain all over her body. In order not to arouse the Phoenix Emperor's suspicion, she didn't let the system block the pain. Chang'e. The familiar scent of phoenix tail entered Gu Xingyin's nose. She knew that the Phoenix Emperor was here. The Phoenix Emperor had never seen his daughter in such a weak and powerless state. Her face was pale, and there wasn't a trace of blood on her lips. Gu Xingyin suddenly stretched out an arm and hugged the Phoenix Emperor's waist. Mother Empress, I'm in pain. Don't move. The Phoenix Emperor's body stiffened. Was Chang'e acting coquettishly to her? This feeling was very novel to her. Her motherly love and tenderness were almost all given to her eldest daughter. However, Chang'e had worshipped her mother since she was a child. She couldn't wait to learn from her mother's every word and action. As a result, she had an unapproachable appearance at a young age. Although this was more in line with the temperament of an imperial heir, it lacked some innocence. The Phoenix Emperor's voice unconsciously softened. I'll ask the imperial physician to boil some painkillers for you. Don't move, be careful not to hurt your wound. Gu Xingyin nodded obediently. Suddenly, she opened her eyes and looked at her. Mother Empress, I have a lot to say to you. She looked pale and weak at this moment, and her eyes were full of dependence and admiration. The Phoenix Emperor didn't want to reject her at all. She sent everyone out, giving the mother and daughter some space to talk in private. Gu Xingyin wanted to sit up, but the Phoenix Emperor reached out to stop her. I already told you not to move. She bent over and pulled out a few pillows from the other side. She placed them behind Gu Xingyin's back, so that she could lift her body up slightly. In the entire Heavenly Phoenix country, there was only one person who could enjoy the personal service of the Phoenix Monarch. Gu Xingyin sighed in his heart. The Phoenix Emperor truly loved his daughter, Huang Chang'e. If it wasn't for the fact that Huang Chang'e's personality was too cold and arrogant in the original plot, she wouldn't have been able to accept the fact that her mother didn't trust her, and didn't try to explain herself. This pair of mother and daughter with similar personalities wouldn't have ended up in that situation. Gu Xingyin stared at the Phoenix Queen and suddenly said, Mother, I didn't do those things. She didn't say what those things were, but the two of them knew what she was referring to. The gentleness on the Phoenix Emperor's face disappeared. She looked at her daughter carefully. She didn't know why she chose to talk about this matter at this time. In the end, she was the Empress's woman. She would never look at things so simply. Gu Xingyin thought in her heart. She didn't seem to notice the Phoenix Emperor's expression and slowly said, I didn't want to explain myself at first. I thought that Mother Empress would understand me. But now, I understand. Chapter 618. She smiled faintly and didn't look at the Phoenix Monarch's expression. She continued, When I was stabbed by Minga, I really thought that I would never wake up. At that time, I thought that if I were to die now, I would definitely be unwilling to accept it. I have yet to prove my innocence. If I were to die, in your eyes, I would be a greedy and disrespectful daughter. How wronged would that be? She raised her eyes and looked at the Phoenix monarch. Regardless of whether you think that I am putting on an act or revealing my true feelings, I still have to say it. Your son Feng Chang'e has always been loyal to you. I have never had any disloyal, disrespectful, disobedient, or unfilial thoughts. The Phoenix monarch didn't speak for a long time. She stared into Gu Xingyin's eyes, as if she wanted to see if she was speaking the truth from her eyes. Gu Xingyin allowed her to look at her with a magnanimous expression. After a long while, the Phoenix monarch finally sighed. She bent down and pulled up Gu Xingyin's blanket a little. If your body isn't well, don't think so much. It hurts your mind. Gu Xingyin's eyes immediately lit up. She looked at the Phoenix monarch with an extremely affectionate gaze. Your daughter's mind isn't hurt. Your daughter is happy. She paused for a moment and continued. When your daughter's injuries recover, I will definitely personally find all the evidence to prove my innocence. She knew that the Phoenix monarch didn't believe her, and had already ordered people to investigate countless times. However, the results all pointed to clear Phoenix Palace. Thus, she could only be placed under house arrest. However, Gu Xingyin, who had God's sight, could easily find a breakthrough. As long as there was a breakthrough, the Phoenix monarch's secret guards would be able to uncover the truth and accurately find the mastermind. The Phoenix monarch didn't continue on this topic. Instead, she changed the topic. Chang'e, what do you plan to do? She clearly saw that when she asked this question, Chang'e's eyes, which had just brightened up, dimmed again. Gu Xingyin closed her eyes, as if hiding the pain in them. She didn't say much. She only said softly, Mother, I don't want to see her again. She didn't mention what Huang Minge had done to her, nor did she mention the conversation she had with Huang Minge. Because there were only the two of them at that time, there was no evidence for whatever she said. As long as Huang Minge denied it, Gu Xingyin had no way to prove the truth. She might as well directly express her dislike for Huang Minge. With the Phoenix King's thoughts, of course, he would want to know what had happened to make Xing, who had always loved his sister as much as his life, unwilling to even look at her. As expected, the Phoenix Emperor didn't ask any more questions. She said, attempting to murder the Crown Prince is a serious crime. Chang'e, I leave the choice to you. Gu Xingyin was silent for a long time. Mother Empress, Minge is still young. Send someone to teach her well. The Phoenix Emperor snorted. You're too weak. Gu Xingyin smiled bitterly. But she's Minge. For the past 14 years, I've treated her just like how you treat me, Mother Empress. He couldn't bear to be ruthless. All right, you should have a good rest. The Phoenix monarch left. Gu Xingyin quietly closed her eyes and lay on the bed. The Phoenix monarch said that the decision she made was too weak. However, she was more at ease with such a loyal person. If she really took Huang Minge's life ruthlessly, the Phoenix monarch would probably think that she was too cold-blooded. She was the Phoenix monarch of this dynasty before she was her mother. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.